Welcome to the She Talks Holy podcast. I am your host, Kiki. Join me weekly as I share God's word to encourage, uplift, support, and build community with my brothers and sisters of Christ. This is a no judgment zone where we are learning and growing together to mature our relationship with God while navigating life's circumstances. We will talk about the good, the bad, and everything in between, trusting God to love, lead, and protect us in the process. So sit back, relax, and let's talk holy. Welcome back to another episode of She Talks Holy. I am so excited. I believe this is episode 4. So if you have listened to my other episodes and you are a returning listener, thank you so much for returning, for coming back to listen, to coming back to getting a word from God and just joining my community and continue supporting and, just having that heart to want to hear from God. I just really appreciate you and I thank you. If you are a new listener, you may have heard it in the introduction, but again, my name is Kiki and I am the host of She Talks Holy. And in today's episode, we'll be talking about letting go. So we're just going to jump right into it. So the verse that we're going to be coming from, or the verse of the night or of the episode, and I think in the future, like when I create my website or whatnot, and I am in the process of doing that, I will have the verse of the week up. I think that's what I want to call it. So I have the verse of the week on the website for you to meditate on, for you to just carry with you, for you to memorize and engrave into your heart, so that you're able to, fully live out who God has called you to be, that person who God has called you to, and continue to grow and have those references to look back on. So this is going to be out of the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, verse 1. It said, "Let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially sin that so easily trips us up, and let us run with endurance the race God has set before us." So, you guys, if you are a returning listener, you are may have come to the realization that I like to give basic definitions of basic words, but they help emphasize and clarify the message that God is trying to get across to us. So let's start with slow us down, especially sin. And I'm going to back up and just say the part with slow us down. So when I think about something that slows me down, I think about something that hinders me, that stunts my growth, that stops me from literally moving, that prevents me from progressing. So when I Googled, because I'm going to Google a definition. So when I Googled the definition for hindrance or hinders, it says creates difficulties for someone or something, resulting in a delay or obstruction. So the first part of the verse tells us, let us strip off everything that slows us down, that hinders us, that creates difficulties for our lives and our beings and our thinking processes and our growth. Let's just remove it. Let's just let it go. And I'm going to dig a little bit deeper on, what I feel like the things, some of the common things, not all of the things, there's the multiple, but some of the common things that hinders us, that slows us down, especially with our walk with God, our progression with our relationship with God, and growing a true, loving, devoted, intentional relationship with God. And then I moved forward with the next part of the verse, like towards the end. It says, let us run with endurance the race that God has set before us. So endurance, I Googled that too. The definition of endurance, according to Google, is suffering something painful or difficult patiently. So when I think of that, I feel like that pertains specifically to the sin part of our lives, because sin is painful. Sin creates difficulties, and we suffer. We suffer when we are in sin, when we are dealing with things that we feel like we can't control or we have no control over, or dealing with things that are keeping us trapped up and that is easily tripping us up. We have to have endurance and patience to suffer through what we're dealing with, all while having grace for ourselves and patience for ourselves to get through. And endurance can also, it can be for difficult times in our lives as well, difficult situations that come up that just aren't in our control. But specifically into letting go, having the endurance to face that difficult, painful thing that is gripping us and holding us and preventing us from growing, and suffering with that, and having patience for ourselves to get through it, and grace for ourselves to overcome. And so with that being said, sin trips us up, and it often keeps us entangled or intertwined with it due to our fleshly desires. We cannot be sinless, but we can be intentional, and we can be careful with what we are allowing sin, how much control we are allowing sin to have in our lives. So you want to just be sure that you're not saying, well, I'm never going to be a perfect person. I'm never going to, as long as I'm here on this earth, I'm going to sin. So why not just do what I want to do? Because doing what you want to do easily trips you up, and it takes you off course, and it causes, issues, and you can't progress as you need to when you're fighting with some major demons. Let's just keep it real. When you're dealing with some of the demonic forces that sin carries, it's hard for you to operate as your true self, as the person who God has called you to be when he formed you into your mother's womb. The true you, the real you, not who society says you are to be, not who your mom, your dad say you needed to be, not who your friends are, but the true you. That takes away from your value. And believe me, you are very valuable in the eyesight of God. But if we're allowing sin to make us ugly and make us filthy, then God is he's going to allow us to have our will. He's going to let us make our choice. So you have to be intentional on the choices that you're making, especially when you are trying to build a relationship with God and you're trying to walk the path and the will that God has for you. So, that's very important. So let's talk about the things that can hinder you. No particular order, and there can be definitely a whole lot more things on this list, but I feel like these are the main things that I've dealt with and things that I feel like have hindered me and weighed me down. So disappointment, rejection, and I'll reflect on a couple of these, but rejection, false narratives. And what I mean by false narratives is you making up things in your head about yourself or about a person or about a situation, and allowing that thing to manifest into a narrative that is not true. It keeps you stuck. It keeps you bound. And it makes you a believer of that narrative. If you're waking up every morning and you're saying to yourself, I'm just gonna speak from reference. Here I am, I'm running late again. I'm so stupid, I'm so dumb, I'll never be on time to work. I'm just a bad mom, I don't have it together. This, that, and the third. You're already starting your day off on the wrong foot. And you're creating a false narrative within your mind that this is who you are. And then you continue those same patterns because you've created this belief system that this is who I am, this is what I do. And it causes you to continue those patterns. And that's where that hindering comes in. It slows you down. It blocks you from becoming, because you're creating false narratives that you are running with and that you are believing, and that you are creating this and then you are creating this person who really isn't you. And then you find yourself in a trap, in a web, in a cycle. Rejection, when you hold on to rejection, it just it keeps you from, and when I say rejection, it can be from like friendships, past relationships, just not getting what you want, and allowing that rejection to define who you are as a person. Because you got rejected, or because that person didn't want that relationship with you, or because your friends aren't around anymore, or because you didn't get that promotion you thought you were going to get, you start to feel worthless. You start to feel disqualified, like undeserving. And again, that hinders you. That hinders who God has truly called you to be. It hinders your growth, because now it takes you back to those false narratives, those false beliefs, and now you're believing in that. Disappointment is just that, just allowing disappointment and being disappointed in certain outcomes and circumstances, and holding on to that disappointment instead of letting it go and moving forward hinders you. Distractions. At this time, one of my major distractions, and I'm just going to put it out there, because remember, we are growing together. This is a community. I'm not here with and have it all together. I'm just here sharing my story and my walk with God with you all, while learning and still growing within my walk with God. My major distraction at this time is my cellular device. I know for a fact that I'm not the only one. I have removed certain apps and things from my phone that have distracted me in the past. Like, I don't have an Instagram, I don't have a TikTok, but I still have YouTube. And I find myself kind of in that same pattern of picking up my phone and allowing my phone to distract me for hours on end, if I'm being honest. And distractions take away from your time with God. They take away from your time with your true calling, whatever God has called you to do and whomever God has called you to be. If you are distracted, if you are doing anything other than that, or if you're operating with an idle mind, I can say, doing things with your time that doesn't really serve a purpose. Some things are for enjoyment, and I'm not saying don't have enjoyment, that you should not, ever be entertained. Is when we allow those things to take over. Because just like with a diet, when you're trying to change up your diet, you're trying to change up how you eat and how you take care of yourself, you learn moderation. You learn how to not overeat. You learn how to drink more water instead of drinking a lot of carbonated drinks or sugary drinks or whatever the case may be. You cut back on junk food. You start eating more things that are fulfilling and nutritious, right? So when you're walking with God and you're trying to create a healthy relationship with God, then you have to have moderation with what you are consuming and what is taking your time. And you have to replace that with things that are healthy for your relationship with God, whether that be prayer, whether that be worship, whether that be self-help, like reading self-help books. Not necessarily have to be like religion or, faith-based books. I personally like those, but like things that are helping yourself grow, things that are meaningful to you and you being who God has called you to be. So scrolling every now and then, it's not an issue, but it's when it's taking majority of your time, majority of your day, and yours may not be scrolling. It could be anything that you feel like is not purposeful in what you should be doing in this season of your life. And that's pretty much wasting your time. And the last one I'm going to say is unhealed trauma. Unhealed trauma, when you're not healed, when you're not going to God for healing, for understanding of who you are and why you operate the way you do, because ultimately He knows. And sometimes it also takes therapy, speaking to a therapist, going to someone to try to get help and assistance to get down to the root of why you do the things you do and why you act the way you act. Trying to have a relationship with God, or with anyone, but mainly God, because that's who we're talking about. Unhealed trauma hinders just because it ultimately, I feel like, holds a lot of the things that I said prior to this last one. You're holding on to disappointment. Someone disappointed you. Someone touched you when you were younger, and you're still holding on to that. Something happened to you traumatic. You were abused. Maybe you were in an abusive relationship. That spouse did something to you that no one had ever done to you before, and it disappointed you because you never thought that this person would be the one to do you the way that they did you. The rejection that caused within that false narratives, who you believed you were after that traumatic event happened. It distracts you from your right now because you're constantly living in the back. It creates these different expectations of who you think or how you think people are going to treat you moving forward in life. Unhealed trauma just leaves the door open for you not to really grow and move forward with what who you are called to be, because it leaves you trapped. And so the main thing to do is just to try to maneuver through that unhealed trauma one day at a time, but to definitely work on that. And because sometimes that is the very root to everything else that is hindering you. And so yeah, those are what I feel like are major hinders. Like I said, it's a lot more. You may have different ones. Those are some of my own that I felt like creates those stumbling blocks, those roadblocks when I'm trying to grow and I'm trying to be who I need to be. And then you have things that entangle you or twist you together, and those are like sin. And the reason why it's so hard to get untangled from sin is because we are fleshy beings. We are a fleshy being. Fleshly body is holding our spirit, and so we fight with the desires of the flesh while trying to have our spirit be the lead and the head of our lives. The Spirit of God. And oftentimes there are certain sins that keep us bound and that trips us up the most, and that is the most difficult to maneuver through when we're trying to really walk with Christ, and that and requires that endurance and that patience and that grace with ourselves as we begin to shed off these things, and as we begin to let go, and as we begin to move forward, and as we begin to be made into that new thing, as we begin to be transformed by God. These things drop off, but they're difficult. And I'm just gonna name some of the things that we all struggle with. Fornication, drugs, alcohol, secular music, drama, unhealthy relationships, the love of money, lying, scamming, moving with the mindset of your ego, and just having like some of the things that I see that like now in the world is like just the admiration of just oneself, just being so self-absorbed. That's the word I'm looking for. Self-absorption, and just putting yourself on a pedestal, like you can do this life all by yourself, or you have the power to move and create, and you know what I'm saying? That and new world teachings, new world culture, I guess, teaches that self-empowerment, doing things within your own ability, and I just don't believe that. I believe that we definitely need God to maneuver through life. We need His peace, we need His love, we need His grace, we need His joy, we need His mercy. That is where you get your ultimate peace from, and that is where I get my power. And I'm gonna just leave it at that. And if you don't believe that, then you're in the wrong place. You should be listening to a different podcast. God is the source of my life. He is the source of my power. He is the source of my light. I get that from God. That is not nothing that I created. I didn't get here on my own. Okay? I got here by the grace of God and by God's power, by God's will, So when you let go of some of these things, the things that hinder you, the things that entangle you, you create a space to receive God's love. You create a space to receive God wholeheartedly. And like I said, you won't be perfect, but if you are intentional, God sees your heart. He sees you. He sees you. He knows you better than anyone knows you. And if you can show Him that, I love you, God. I want to be who you call me to be. I know I'm not going to be perfect. I know my works don't get me to heaven. I could be I could be the most prayed up, going to church, turtleneck wearing person in the world. That's not going to get me to heaven. That's not going to get me to heaven. Accepting Jesus as my Lord and Savior is what gets me to heaven. And being intentional about my walk with God is what matures my relationship with Him and makes my relationship intimate. Makes our relationship with Him sacred. With any relationship, you have to be intentional. With God, there's requirements, and that's just that. People want to dismiss those requirements, and it's not as difficult as people make it seem. Like I see a lot, and it can get overwhelming trying to walk with God, trying to walk a Christian life, or just trying to walk even if this is just faith-based, just trying to walk a walk with God. It can be overwhelming, especially with everyone telling you what you shouldn't be doing, and I get it. But some things just you have to put down in order to have a authentic relationship with God. Some things that I hear is just, to me, ridiculous. It's people with their own convictions and their own discernments that God has given them, and then they're pushing it out to everyone else as if this is what everyone needs to believe. But there's one thing that I've learned and with reading my Bible is that God gives us all different discernment. God gives us all conviction, and what He convicts one person with or gives discernment to one person, He may not give that to another person. But it's not my job to go make that person feel bad because they don't have the same convictions that I have, because my walk is not their walk. So that's what I want to make clear, is that when I'm talking about just what we know we can do, but not getting so fixated on trying to be the most perfect person or trying to live this most perfect life, but knowing what things, and because with these things, and the reason why, let me take you back. The reason why I'm saying, as far as entanglements and things that twist us together, and these specific things that I called out, fortification, drugs, secular music, drama, unhealthy relationships, I'm saying those things because those things change our minds. Those things change our mindsets. Those things mess with our spirits. Fortification, when you're sleeping with different people, when you're having relationships with this person and that person, you are being spiritually entwined with that person. That is now you're picking up their demeanor, their demons, their ways of thinking, and it's becoming a part of who you are. I mean, that's not who God called you to be. That is why I speak of fortification, not to make you feel bad, because that's something that you're doing. It's just a piece of advice to help you become who God has called you to be. And if you're steady fornicating, you're steady sleeping with everybody, you're steady picking up demons, you're steady picking up things that God doesn't have for you, that is the reason for that. That is the reason why. Drugs, alcohol, change your way of thinking, change your mindset. You're not who you're supposed to be when you're high. You're not who you're supposed to be when you're drunk. You're making foolish choices. You're making foolish decisions. You can't operate wholeheartedly in the way that God needs you to operate. That is why I say those things. Secular music. Let me tell you something. I still struggle with this area. Okay, but the reason why I'm saying secular music, and again, you have to use your own discernment, your own conviction. If you're not being convicted in that area right now, then keep going. Keep your walk with God. Just keep reading your Bible, keep praying, and God will give you what He wants you to change, what He wants you to remove from yourself in order to operate in who you need to operate in and who you need to be. But secular music feeds us things, gives us creates certain mindsets. The same thing, that is why I say those things. And I know you hear it a lot. It's like, we always got to put down stuff, we always da. Some things just are necessary for your growth. Now, I don't believe in everything that people come out of their mouth, like as far as like when you just listen to all the things that people say Christians need to do. Don't do this, don't do that, don't. And certain things, yes, the things I mentioned, I feel like are the top. But all the little other things, I just feel like you have to have your own discernment, your own conviction, your own relationship with God for God to lead you. And don't feel guilty. Don't feel bad if you aren't on the same level someone else's is. Someone is not listening to secular music, but you still listen to Chris Brown or Rihanna. I don't know. I said both of them back to back. But they're just who I thought of at this time. Whatever. And you're not being convicted of that yet. Don't feel like you're less than because another person has conquered that chapter or that part of their walk. You are on your own walk. You are on your own journey. But just remember that these things can be, if you are trying to grow, these things can be keeping you entangled and tripping you up, or they can be hindering you and stunning your growth. So letting go just creates that space to receive God's love and to accept Him into your life wholeheartedly. So how to let go consists of confession, prayer, change. You're going to need some support, and then you're going to need to repeat. You're going to need to confess to God the things that you're dealing with, that you are ready to change, that you are ready to let go of, so that you can walk in the will of God. You're going to confess your sins. You're going to say, God, this is what I'm doing. I don't like it. I want to change. I want to be a different person. I don't want to be doing these things. These things don't make me feel good. These things actually make me feel bad, God. I need your help. And then you're going to pray. You're going to pray for God to come into your life, to guide you. You're going to pray for that discernment. You know, if you don't have it, what you want to say, change. You're going to pray for that discernment. Pray for God to lead you. Ask God to come into your day and welcome Him into your home, into your life, into your space, so that you're able to operate in the Spirit. You know, just praying. And then you're going to just maybe begin to change some things. Change who you encounter with, your friend group. Maybe you need to go hang out with some more like-minded people. Maybe it's time to just change environments. Move to a different city, get a different outlook, have a new start. Change how you operate, the way you do things, your schedule, your activities. Try new things that you've never tried before, to help you remove some of the things that are hindering you or that are entangling you. If you like to smoke and drink now and go out to the club, maybe try to change that up. Maybe for a season, if you can, just do a try one. I'm just not going to go out this month. Maybe I'm going to go to church, or maybe if I don't want to go to church, I'm not quite ready to do that big step yet. Maybe I'll join like a Bible study. Maybe I'll just change how I am moving and what I am participating in and what I am entertaining. And then I'm going to ask for support. We're not meant to do life alone. Have someone to call who you can trust. If you have a pastor, go to a pastor. Like I said, therapy is a good one if that's what you're needing for some of those blockages. A good friend to call on. Whatever that may look like for you, but definitely lean on someone for support while you're trying to become a better person and become God-fearing and more like Jesus. And then you repeat. This is constant. This is a lifelong journey. This is a lifelong event of letting go of things, of putting things down, of moving forward. So these things don't happen every night, and you're not going to lay all these things down at once. But what you're going to do is you're going to take one step at a time, and you're going to have patience, and you're going to endure through the process of the major things that are really affecting you. And you're going to maneuver through them. One thing at a time, one step at a time. And when you've put down one thing, you're going to repeat the process. You're going to confess. You're going to pray. You're going to change something. You're going to have that support, and then you're going to repeat. This is life. Life, we're constantly letting go. We're constantly growing. We're constantly evolving. So just because you let something go one time don't mean that that's going to be the last time you let that thing go. You may pick that thing back up and have to go through the whole process again, or you may just put that thing down, but then you may have something else. Okay, God, I've worked on that. We've worked on that. I've been able. You've helped me, God. You've given me the strength. You've given me the power. You've given me, the discipline to put this thing down. And now this is another thing that I would like to work on. And you're just going to repeat. And next thing you know, your relationship with God has matured so much, and you have become who you dreamed to become, how you dream to walk, how you dream to talk, how you dream to look when it comes to your walk with God, how you dream to act, So that is all that I have for tonight. If you are still here, again, thank you so much for listening. I hope you all have a great rest of your week, and bye. I'll talk to you all next time.